So let's talk about self-protection and your narcissistic parent. So just to give you context, I run a monthly workshop and this topic organically came up the last time I ran it. And I think it's because it's something that we are always working on in regards to not only our relationship with our narcissistic parent, but also healing our mom wounds, our attachment wounds that a lot of times were in order to take care of someone else or to appease someone else or to shut down the fire, we might have in a way abandoned ourselves. And sometimes that's really hard to admit or even to catch till we get a lot older, because a lot of times we're so used to doing it, especially when we're younger, that when we finally get to, let's say, age 32 or something and start to piece it all together with our therapist, with our friends, or in a workshop or with a coach, there's a lot of things to unpack and to grieve, and there's a lot of confusion about how do I repair it with myself. In a way, I think me doing these podcast episodes, doing the YouTube channel is trying to repair some of the wounding, because I think I stayed silent for a long time. I didn't really speak my truth. And when I tried to, the consequences in my family were so extreme. I can't even tell you, there was this one trip we went on and, there was something that happened with my husband, and I thought because it was him, they would kind of try to see his feelings and not escalate the situation, because we were traveling with them, and it was quite the opposite. My mom was very eager to say, if we wanted to leave, we should just go. And I remember feeling very shocked, because I wasn't escalating like that. I was literally just saying there was something that was bothering him and that, we should try to address it. And I think that this is probably something a lot of the listeners can relate to. I'm not sure how things ever escalate to the point that they get. And I think that's why conflict avoidance is something, I definitely work on in my adult life, because it's so jarring when things go from 0 to 100, or in this case, maybe not 0 to 100, but definitely escalating to a place where the punishment doesn't fit the crime. So I think that how we protect ourselves really varies from person to person. And I think noticing and trying to understand that it's an ongoing process, right? You could take, let's say, a week off from work, and that could be something protective because you're nurturing yourself, you're resting. But then the next time you do that, maybe that doesn't feel like the protective thing to do. Maybe that actually feels like you're avoiding something, and maybe there's another layer of it that you have to work on. For me, last year I actually did 2 separate meditation retreats, and believe me, I am not the type of person that if you'd ever meet, you'd think I was a meditator. I call myself kind of a reluctant meditator, meaning I feel because I tend to be fast-paced, because I don't necessarily to always sit and dwell on my feelings, meditation is something that is definitely counterintuitive, but something I've definitely gotten a lot from. But that's something that, even though maybe that doesn't seem self-protective, it has been protective, because it's 2 times a year when I sit and just notice whatever's come up in the last half of the year. And if there are feelings of grief or sadness or loss, which I think for many of us, there's been since, let's say, COVID, and maybe even before COVID. I don't know about for you, but my grandmother passed away in 2020. I think my grandfather passed away in 2018. My husband's mom passed away in 2020. So that's just scratching the surface. And then of course, in the past 2 years, I feel like my parents have gotten a lot older. They just look older. They act older. So the loss of just them as not really old people, for lack of a better way to say it, or senior citizens, true senior citizens, has been difficult. So I think my example of the meditation retreat, of that being the self-protective thing, is an interesting thing, because it's protective for me because it gives me space to feel my feelings. And it's a space where if I'm in my work week, I don't really have in the same way, because it's a lot about holding other people's feelings, even though, of course, I love my job and of course I want to hold that space. I always try to make sure I'm not being hypocritical. Like if I'm asking someone to do something, I'm at least going to try to also do it for myself. And I think that being self-protective is a way of remothering ourselves. You know, this podcast is Healing Your Mom Wound, and it is that way because I didn't want to reframe. I didn't want the wording for everything I do to only be like with the narcissistic parent word, you know, because even though I use that term, somehow it still feels like we're pathologizing, and I want the topic, the theme, to be about ourselves, healing our mom wound, healing our experience, reparenting ourselves. And I think that is something that can be forgotten. That is the umbrella of like, what are we doing to be the parent we wished we'd had, to be self-protective? Like after I do this today, filming and the podcast, I'm supposed to take a few days off work. And you know, I feel like I've been working a lot lately, so I'm grateful for the work, of course, but I think the idea somehow, and I think this happens as we get older, is when we're not working, it's somehow more self-indulgent. Somehow I think when we're in our 20s maybe, or at least for me, when I would take time, it just feels more allowed. And yet I know that that's like the harsh inner critic, right? The harsh sort of inner voice that says, as I get older, you're not really supposed to have fun. You're supposed to be serious, and really like joy isn't supposed to be there, even though I would never tell someone else that, right? That's like the irony in why I wanted to do this podcast, is to maybe admit to some things, talk about some things I didn't necessarily want to get into in the YouTube episodes about my own inner voice. And even though I know that, I think it's really hard to actually allow myself the days off. Luckily, and I'm taking the days off with my spouse, and so I have built-in accountability for doing it, and I think it's going to be a great time. But the switching into a time off mode, a relax mode, to the idea that I'm supposed to and allowed to enjoy myself, ooh, I don't know. It just feels very foreign sometimes. Even though, again, on the surface, I might give myself things and treat myself well outwardly in some ways, I think there's just the inner critic that I'm still, you know, sitting with, understanding more about, and realizing that a lot of, I think for me, self-protection, at least coming out of my 20s, has been survival, you know, which means earning money and making sure I don't need anything in that way from my family, which I think is relatable if you've had a difficult dynamic with your family where, you know, needing them is risky and could create more problems for you. So I think a lot of things for me have been about making myself as financially independent as I possibly could. But I can take that definitely too far and forget to create balance, like taking time off. So I'm making this a lot the example about what I do, but I think what I would say is this is just planting a seed for you. In what ways have you sometimes abandoned yourself? Especially in regards to your journey to heal. We might have tried to heal through financial independence, but at the same time, like my example, not left enough room for play, or just been in a fearful state. So I think it's just something to think about for yourself. And also, if there is something that comes up in the next few weeks that could be an opportunity to be self-protective, that maybe you'll say yes. Like there was something that came up for me at the end of the year that I really was saying no to, and my friend was like, no, you should come with this, with me to this. And I said yes. And I think it was because it's kind of scary to trust people, to let new people in, because what if they disappoint me? What if they're not who they seem? But then again, if I never try to let people in, then they can also pleasantly surprise me. So that's what I have to say on self-protection, and we'll come back to this theme, I'm sure. Hope something resonated with you. Please leave me a podcast review if you enjoyed this. Please go to my YouTube channel, sign up for my free mini course if you'd like on your narcissistic parent survival guide, and have a good day. So I wanted to include a meditation or mindfulness practice on self-protection. I think that it's something I've used with clients and within myself that I think can be really helpful to visualize what self-protection feels like, to have a felt sense. Self-protection, obviously this isn't a substitute for going to therapy or doing a workshop, but it's just something that can deepen self-protection for you. And also I think that if you have dealt with a narcissistic or difficult parent, you're no stranger to setting a boundary and them coming in and sort of smashing it or intruding on it. So because sometimes we can't control their behavior, I think the meditation and the mindfulness practice is extra important, because they can't really cross our energetic boundaries though if we don't let them, right? Or even if they try to, we certainly can reset ourselves. So if you're open to it, just closing your eyes and just follow my voice. We're going to do a little mindfulness meditation on self-protection. So turning your attention inward and just taking a few deep breaths. Just breathing in through your nose. Audibly exhale out your mouth. Breathing in through your nose. Audibly exhale out your mouth. And just imagining waves on the ocean. Just allowing your breath to come and go. And this is just a settling breath to center yourself as we move into the second piece on self-protection. If you haven't already, just really take a moment to see if there's any tension in your shoulders. You can tense your shoulders up like you're tensing them up to your ears, and then just drop them. And then you could do some gentle neck rolls if you'd like. Oftentimes, again, on this theme, if we've had difficult family dynamics, we are likely to hold a lot of tension in our bodies. So just taking a moment to notice how our body feels. And just inviting yourself to think about the word self-protection as you continue to breathe deeply. Noticing if there's a symbol that comes to mind or a color. I don't know why, but for me, I think about a very intense, like pink cloud that surrounds me. You could also use the idea of a golden light that surrounds you, that's maybe egg-shaped in nature, that goes above, below, and through you. That is protective in nature. As you breathe in, I want you to imagine breathing in that gold light into the cells of your body. And again, we know this isn't literal, but we're suspending some judgment as we imagine this. That you breathe this golden light into your spine. And you're breathing this golden light now into your brain even. And imagine this golden egg shape goes again above, below you, through you, and has sort of this film on top of it, another layer of protection. It can be, you can imagine like a shield around the eggshell. You can imagine just some gauze around the eggshell. But just imagine that there is some barrier, basically, between your golden energy or pink energy or whatever your symbol is for self-protection and the outer world. Just noticing what that feels like. To think about the idea that not everything can just penetrate through. Not everything can just come right in. That you have some power and control in what comes through, and this visual imagery represents it. And as you breathe now, imagining breathing into your heart. Just imagine breathing in this sort of fierce, self-compassionate energy. Almost like you may see like a female lion protect its cubs. You may know someone that has this maternal sense of self-protectiveness that you've observed, even if you haven't felt it yourself. Just imagining this golden light can do this same fierce protectiveness towards you in just the right way. And I want you to imagine now the idea that something maybe that has mildly irritated you, or someone that has mildly irritated you, or said something maybe specific that you weren't crazy about. Just imagining them. And just imagining what it would feel like if whatever they said just rolled off this golden kind of light that is encased in this layer of gauze. For me, I'm imagining it just rolling off the gauze. And just noticing what it feels like to just have anything that is not here to serve you, that is not here to reinforce your own goodness, your own strength, can just sort of roll off, float away. And imagining what it would even feel like to just let that go, to not worry about what it means or what it means about you, or are you strong enough or not strong enough. Just noticing that this golden light kind of holds you and reminds you in just the right way of your worth, of your inherent value as a human being. And just imagining the idea of taking this golden light that is around you, encased in maybe this gauze on top or a shield over it, into the rest of your day. Just noticing if you had this with you for the rest of, if it's afternoon where you are, the afternoon. Just noticing what would be different. What would you be able to know or hold on to about yourself? And just taking a few final breaths. As you breathe in, just making a half smile if you're not doing so already. Just reinforcing the sense of self-warmth, sense of tenderness that you can have for yourself, even if it's for just this breath. And then maybe if you have time tonight before bed, just imagining this again, this golden light or whatever your symbol was of self-protection. And you can do this simple exercise of just seeing if maybe even that kind of golden light were to talk, what would it remind you about yourself? Because we're really trying to strengthen these positive knowings, these positive qualities, these positive truths about you through this visual imagery. So I hope that helps. It's one of my favorite ones. And if you haven't already, just slowly opening your eyes, wiggling your toes, orienting yourself back. And that's the self-protection mindfulness meditation. Thank you.